Alright, I am going to tie up a fly that was born out of a mistake. And that is one that I recently added to the site. It's a small articulated streamer. And so this was meant to be a peanut allergy, a run of those on jig hooks. However, I always, anytime I'm tying a production batch of streamers, as most commercial tires would, I was tying all of the back halves first. And I did this for both the brown olive tan version and the olive white rainbow trout version. And I tied them, for the most part, after fishing. So basically working into the late night. And that's the only thing I can think of, because I left off the wing on every single fly, the front wing of the back hook. Like, I just tied in the tail, the chenille, and the hackle. And I just could not accept defeat and either chunk or scrap all of the hooks. So I formed a pattern around them, and one that, other than the tail, is subs a soft hackle for every stack of marabou that you would traditionally have. And it was received really well, so I'm glad I did that, even though I probably spent far more time coming up with a pattern to use it than I would have just taking a lighter and razor blade to the hooks. So I start by adding a two-tone tail, and then just a few turns, I think that was like 2.5 of chenille. I've got a large yellow gold fulling mill Straggle chenille and a medium UV brown. And when I say these flies are all two-tone, like every aspect of them is two-toned. The body, the tail, the wing. I've just always liked that detail, that contrast in a fly, or really any bait for that matter. So, I'm just going to split my thread. So for the hackle, I am using a brown hen hackle. And since I do not have yellow hen, I have trimmed off a piece of schlappen, and I trimmed it so that it would be, well, A, size proportionate, and B, closer to the length of the brown hackle. And you really don't need much yellow. Like, that stuff, no matter how sparse you make it, it's showing up. So I've really got just enough for one wrap, which is, again, all I want. And now I am going to take what looks like the shortest brown hackle and make a couple wraps with it. And tie it off. And lastly, I am going to add some rubber legs. And this pattern is small. This back hook is a size 6 fulling mill streamer stripper, and the front hook will be a size 4 Partridge ideal jig hook. So the rubber leg I'm adding to the back half is only, like, I take one full leg and I'll cut it into thirds, and I'm using 1/3 per side. So if you're a math nerd, that is 1/6 of a rubber leg, full length. Times two. And that is it. I am going to glue it, knot it, attach it to the front half, and then resume the tutorial. I've got the hooks attached, and for the middle wing, instead of wrapping a hackle, I'm just going to tie in some yellow schlappen. Just roll it around a bit, and the yellow is the belly after all, so I'm not as concerned if it bleeds into the top of the fly. And for the brown, again, since I've got proper hackle, I am going to wrap it. And I didn't do this on the other one, but I've been doing this lately, making all of my wraps in front of the thread. So that when I go to tie it off, I cross every single hackle wrap, which is unnecessary given the way that I tie them off, but still, I find reassuring, because when I go to tie it off, I take the thread at least covering the final wrap of hackle, so I'm totally covering that final stem wrap. So I mean, it can't slip free of the knot, and if it breaks, now I've got those thread wraps crossing all the hackle, so it's only going to unravel so far, unless you're fishing for piranha, in which case that's on you, boo. So now I'm going to add the chenille that I have lost in like 5 minutes of tying. Here it is. And now I'm seriously going to only make probably 2 wraps. Because since the fly is so small and on a jig hook, it's a pretty good candidate for like a bigger jig streamer for a tightline rod, while being perfectly suitable on a traditional casting rod. So since that is the case, given the tight line ability, I don't want to make it like ridiculously dense, which this chenille will build up really quickly. So I am making, like I said, 2 wraps. I think I wasn't counting. And I'm just going to go through it with my flea comb. Sweep the chenille back, and make those final hackle wraps. And for this one, I'm not concerned about the yellow being overly heavy. Like, at the end of the day, it is a yellow fly. I only reduced the prior yellow just to make sure that brown is still got some, it still sticks out. So I made about maybe 2 wraps of hackle. Ideally, I would, if I was tying a bunch of these, I would sort the schlappen and pull all of the generally shorter pieces, set them to the side for this step, but I'm tutorial tying, so yeah. And then I make those final brown wraps. And I don't bother stroking them back. I've never gotten caught up in that, because I find, like, as long as you're not crossing hackle in a way that like pins it down in weird positions, it's all gonna sweep back naturally anyways. So final-ish step is to add those final rubber legs, which honestly, again, I'm just going to cut into thirds. But this time, I'm going to use 2 of the thirds per side. You jerk. I am going to use 1 of the thirds per side. I just dropped one of them and it most likely landed into my trash tray underneath me. I'm not even going to entertain looking for it. And finally, the finishing dubbing is kind of personal preference, and when tying this one, my personal preference was to grab whatever was closest, and that just happened to be gold. but I would just as well use a UV brown, UV yellow, even a Jan Simon bronze peacock dubbing would be nice. Really anything. I mean, there's a lot going on this little fly, so it's one of those details that really is insignificant. It's more so just cleaning up the fly and covering those structural thread wraps. Then I'm going to finish with a glued whip finish. Hot spot, that is. Trim those little nubs off the legs. Maybe give the chenille one more brush, and that's it. I didn't brush the back half at all. Which post rubber leg is not ideal. So I don't think I'm going to do that. But yeah, that is a fly that was never supposed to happen, but I'm really glad it did. And not just because it has sold well, but because it's a really nice little fly. Yeah. So sky's the limit on colors. I originally and still intend on tying it. The primary colors were going to be this version and a rainbow trout version, which that one actually materialized. But there was a bunch that I tied in that original version a few years ago. I want to redo all of those, like the fire tiger, I did a brown orange that was really cool. Then I want to do a white version, a black and purple. Yeah, it's got a ton of different potential variations and just comes out really nice with that mottled two-tone hackle look. So, yeah, I thought that was good because I actually made it through without messing it up, which I can't say the same for all of the flies I've tied tonight for videos. Hope you liked it. I hope it helps anyone that was wanting this video, because I was asked, and that's one other thing I want to say is I do intend on tying videos when people ask me to tie them on certain patterns, but I go so long between tying on video that I forget. I just forget most often. Sometimes it's because like I just don't have the materials, but more often than not, and since this was a recent tie, it was still pretty fresh on my mind. Yeah, I'm going to hopefully squeeze out a couple more tonight and then get back to paying work. That's it. Like me, subscribe to stuff, be it the newspaper, YouTube channels, I don't know, just stuff. Visit my page or don't. Page is in all pages: Facebook, Instagram, website, LinkedIn. That was dumb. And once it gets dumb, it only gets dumber. Goodbye.